आप सभी को नमस्कार। जून में अभी मानव इतिहास के सबसे बड़े चुनावों में भारत के लोगों ने मुझे लगातार तीसरी बार सेवा का अवसर दिया है और आज मैं इसी 1/6 ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटी की आवाज आप तक पहुंचाने यहां आया हूं। फ्रेंड्स, जब हम ग्लोबल फ्यूचर की बात कर रहे हैं तो ह्यूमन सेंट्रिक अप्रोच सर्वप्रथम होनी चाहिए। सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट को प्राथमिकता देते हुए हमें मानव कल्याण, फूड, हेल्थ सिक्योरिटी ये भी सुनिश्चित करनी होगी। भारत में 250 मिलियन लोगों को गरीबी से बाहर निकालकर हमने यह दिखाया है कि सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट कैन बी सक्सेसफुल। सक्सेस गरीबी से बाहर निकालकर हमने यह दिखाया है कि सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट कैन बी सक्सेसफुल। सक्सेस का हमारा यह अनुभव हम ग्लोबल साउथ के साथ साझा करने के लिए तैयार है। फ्रेंड्स, सक्सेस ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटी लाइज इन आवर कलेक्टिव स्ट्रेंथ, नॉट इन द बैटलफील्ड। और वैश्विक शांति एवं विकास के लिए ग्लोबल संस्थाओं में रिफॉर्म्स आवश्यक है। रिफॉर्म इज द की टू रिलेवेंस। अफ्रीकन यूनियन को नई दिल्ली समिट में G20 की स्थायी सदस्यता इसी दिशा में एक महत्वपूर्ण कदम था। वैश्विक शांति और सुरक्षा के लिए एक तरफ आतंकवाद जैसा बड़ा खतरा है तो दूसरी तरफ साइबर, मैरीटाइम, स्पेस जैसे अनेक संघर्ष के नए नए मैदान भी बन रहे हैं। इन सभी विषयों पर मैं जोर देकर कहूंगा कि ग्लोबल एक्शन मस्ट मैच ग्लोबल एम्बिशन। फ्रेंड्स, टेक्नोलॉजी के सेफ और रिस्पॉन्सिबल यूज के लिए बैलेंस रेगुलेशन की आवश्यकता है। हमें ऐसी ग्लोबल डिजिटल गवर्नेंस चाहिए जिसमें राष्ट्रीय संप्रभुता और अखंडता अक्षुण्ण रहे। डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर शुड बी ए ब्रिज, नॉट अ बैरियर। ग्लोबल गुड के लिए भारत अपना डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पूरे विश्व से साझा करने के लिए तैयार है। फ्रेंड्स, भारत के लिए वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर एक कमिटमेंट है। यही कमिटमेंट हमारे वन अर्थ, वन हेल्थ और वन सन, वन वर्ल्ड, वन ग्रिड जैसे इनिशिएटिव्स में भी दिखाई देता है। पूरी मानवता के हितों की रक्षा और वैश्विक समृद्धि के लिए भारत मनसा वाचा कर्मणा से काम करता रहेगा। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Very good Monday evening and welcome, friends. You just heard Prime Minister addressing the Summit of the Future at the United Nations. Punchy 5 minutes where he spoke about how India is today a net solutions provider to the world. How India is a friend of the world and not contributing in any manner to all the troubles and problems that we face. In fact, past 3 days, Prime Minister and his team have camped in the USA and done everything from hawking for India's tech future to bringing ancient heritage back home. Like he always does, Modi also addressed a Diaspora event. And like always, it has come in for criticism from the opposition. One wonders what's wrong, politically or otherwise, if one talks up India's picture abroad. If the world comes to know that for holding 17% of its population, India contributes just 4% to the carbon emissions, that we are being a responsible citizen of the world. You wonder if democracy is our biggest strength, if our recently held election is showcased as the most visible marker of its vibrancy. What's wrong with that? After all, BJP won, but it came down to 240. Congress lost, but it almost doubled its tally. The same Congress leaders who do not tire of projecting that very result as an almost victory, raised grave doubts about India's democracy when abroad. The same Congress leaders who, while giving stump speeches in Kashmir, are claiming that they would put all BJP leaders in jail when they come to power, create a bogey that democracy is in danger in India when speaking to foreign audiences. This talking up to electorate and talking down to foreigners is diabolical, to say the least. You just heard Prime Minister address the Summit of the Future, and let's have a conversation on the two ideas of India. One that shows India as a strong, vibrant democracy, confident of contributing to world progress, and the other, a brooding, negative, and even dark picture that makes us look bad. Look at how the Prime Minister has fared over the last 3 days. Then I come back on the other side with a panel of guests.
Last night at the Nassau Coliseum, Prime Minister Modi appeared at his third Diaspora event in the United States since 2014, titled Modi and US. Focusing on India's diversity, he started off with his appreciation of Indian diaspora and highlighted the biggest strength of our democracy, our unity.
भाषा अनेक है, लेकिन भाव एक है, और वो भाव है भारत माता की, वो भाव है भारतीयता.
As America too gears up for presidential election, in a clear message to Democracy in Danger Brigade, Prime Minister Modi explained the unparalleled scale of the recently concluded election in India, the largest in human history.
2,500 से ज्यादा पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज, 8,000 से ज्यादा कैंडिडेट्स, अलग अलग भाषाओं के हजारों न्यूज़पेपर्स, सैकड़ों रेडियो स्टेशन, सैकड़ों टीवी न्यूज चैनल, करोड़ों सोशल मीडिया अकाउंट्स, ये सब भारत की डेमोक्रेसी को वाइब्रेंट बनाते हैं.
Speaking further on India's rise as a global power, Prime Minister Modi articulated his commitment to global peace endeavors.
कोरोना के समय में हमने 150 से ज्यादा देशों को वैक्सीन और दवाइयां भेजी.
Hitting out at expansionist powers, Prime Minister set the record straight by reiterating India's objective of global friendship and not global domination.
भारत की प्राथमिकता दुनिया में अपना दबाव बढ़ाने की नहीं, अपना प्रभाव बढ़ाने की है.
Further listing India's transformational changes in the last decade, Prime Minister coined a new AI term for India's growth ambitions.
A for aspirational, I for India. Aspirational India. आज करोड़ों भारतीयों की एस्पिरेशन भारत की ग्रोथ को ड्राइव कर रही है.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi's address is widely contrasted with that of leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi, who too made national headlines on his US visit.
The fight is about whether he, as a Sikh, is going to be allowed to wear his turban in India. Or he, as a Sikh, is going to be allowed to wear a kada in India. Or he, as a Sikh, is going to be able to go to Gurdwara. That's what the fight is about.
The question remains, who portrayed the right picture of India's journey on foreign land?
All right, Prime Minister was in fact slotted to speak anytime between 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. But then it seems some changes in the slotting happened and the Prime Minister spoke just at sharp 9. And that's how we know what he said at the UN Summit of the Future. Welcoming my guests in this conversation, Nikhil Joshi, political analyst, leans towards the Congress party. He's joining us live from Delhi. We also have Karan Verma, political analyst, leans towards the right. He's joining us live from Delhi. We also have Professor Madhav Nalapat, Vice Chairman of the Manipal Advanced Research Group. He's a public policy analyst and brings sharp insights. And we also have Dr. Sampath Shivangi. He's a Republican National Party delegate. He's joining us live from New York. And I would want to begin with him before the conversation gets political. Dr. Sampath Shivangi, we just want to understand from here in India and Delhi, how is Prime Minister's visit being seen generally, not just in the diaspora, but beyond, in the US establishment and New York and at other places around the United States?
Abhishek, thank you for inviting. I think Prime Minister's visit and his speech were extraordinarily outstanding. That is the word I use, especially when he spoke yesterday to the IT delegation. 15 topmost technologists who own these companies, they were there yesterday with him, and they had all the praise for Modi. Not only he's a prime minister, he understands IT. I was amazed. His knowledge of technology, his knowledge of IA, beyond. I'm a physician, I'm here for 50 years. I haven't comprehended, but the man who hardly went to university, he knows all about IA. He is, I'll tell you, my hat's off to him. He understood, especially NVIDIA chairman, who is a Chinese descent, and he was all the praise about Prime Minister Modi, and he says he knows more about IA than anybody he knows of. So that's a great compliment to Modi ji and to India. I wish one day, as he mentioned yesterday, that the chips are being produced in India, and they'll be built in USA. I think that I want to see that day when it happens, because we look forward to such a wonderful, wonderful contribution from India to the world, not only to America. So I welcome his speech, and I think who all attended. As you know, it was on CNBC. It was a live broadcast. He attended with Google, Microsoft, IBM. All CEOs were in full praise of him. I have not seen any forget about Indian Prime Minister or any President or Prime Minister in US of that caliber.
Dr. Sampath, anything you saw on the Prime Minister insofar as the mainstream media in the US is concerned, the main newspapers in New York and Washington, D.C., the kind of commentary that has gone on?
Okay, sorry, what was the question?
My question is, did you see how the Prime Minister's visit was covered in the mainstream media, in the newspapers, broadsheets, in television news in New York and Washington, D.C.?
I did. He was there in Delaware for a day with a Quad meeting, but actually, as I mentioned, it was more of a bilateral meeting between President Biden and Prime Minister Modi, because the other two were there from Japan and Australia.
Right.
But they were not had much to say, except Modi was.
Okay, fair enough. We got some opening comments on Prime Minister's visit there. Let me take this to Professor Madhav Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, before we get a political conversation going, your view from geostrategic point of understanding, geopolitical understanding, how would you see Prime Minister Modi's 3 days in Delaware and New York?
I would say it's a great success for India. And we in India would call our country Bharat, like the Germans call their country Deutschland, the Japanese call their country Nippon. Inside our country, we would call it Bharat. Outside the country, let it be called Japan, Germany, India, it doesn't matter. I would say it's a great success. And you had quoted some quotes from the leader of the opposition. I am a well-wisher of the leader of the opposition. I wish him well. I just want to point out, that he's the leader of the opposition in Parliament. He should not be leader of the opposition to India. But there's a whole lot of forces who are opposing India. I think it's very important to understand that being the leader of the opposition in Parliament is very different from being the leader of the opposition to India, and because that is definitely there in a global way. But again, I would like to say I'm a well-wisher, and I knew his father very well, and I was extremely, I had great regard for him. And I would say, as a well-wisher, this is my advice. I want to say very clearly, 2014 India and 2024 India are totally different. And the change is Narendra Damodar Das Modi, the first backward caste individual to come as the Prime Minister of India. You had members who are very privileged backgrounds. You had members who have come from very privileged societal backgrounds. Here we have an individual who has come from a poverty-stricken background.
Yeah.
And he has come to the top. And why has he come to the top? By sheer confidence in not only himself, but the people of India and the future of India.
Yeah.
And 2014 onwards, that confidence he has proudly worn on his sleeve, and he has expressed it everywhere.
Yeah.
And may I say one thing very clearly? This is also an India, Abhishek, that knows how to stand up and stand tall.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, if the forces that are opposed to India say something, this is an India that is not meekly accepted, but an India that says, what nonsense you are talking. You are talking utter rubbish. And if you want to keep talking rubbish, go ahead. So I'd like to say very clearly that I think the Prime Minister's visit was a great success. You have seen the way Joe Biden, came and put his arm around the Prime Minister. The reason for that is the India-US alliance is key, is central to a stable, prosperous, and free Indo-Pacific. The defense alliance is the strongest in the world. India-US do more military exercises with each other than with any 2 or 3 other countries combined.
True.
So I'd like to say it was a very successful visit, Abhishek. I'm not going to look at the political, drumbeat of voices pro and con. I'm looking at it from a point of view of strategy, and from a hard-headed strategic viewpoint, his visit indicated India has now been accepted as a global major power, as a global equal.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and that's so visible in the optics and the pictures that we have seen coming in for the last 3 days. Professor Nalapat, you say that you would not make it political, but you did bring in a very interesting nuance, and I want to pick up from there and take it to Nikhil Joshi because he gives us the Congress view. Nikhil, Professor Nalapat said that Rahul Gandhi, and he is his well-wisher, is leader of opposition in parliament. He is not leader of opposition to India when he is abroad, for God's sake. If India is the fastest growing major economy and hence a global engine of growth, Nikhil, why should Rahul Gandhi not acknowledge this even once when he's outside India?
First of all, Abhishek, my name is Nikhil Jain. Not
Nikhil, sorry, Nikhil.
Secondly, we started the debate with Dr. Sampati putting in his views, and you started by saying that let's reserve the political voices for later on. But I'm sorry, he's a delegate from the Republican Party in the US, which is, I think, the most important overseas ally of the BJP. How can we all forget that Prime Minister Modi was out campaigning for President Donald Trump and he was raising his hand and saying, "Ab ki baar Trump ki sarkar." Then also, I would like to correct the previous speaker. Prime Minister Modi is not the first OBC Prime Minister India has had. It was H.D. Deve Gowda. Gowdas are considered an OBC community within the state of Karnataka.
Okay.
Thirdly, of course,
Vokkaligas are not considered.
Important...
Vokkaligas and Lingayats are the two forward communities in Karnataka. My apologies, but I know Karnataka well. I love Karnataka. Vokkaligas and Lingayats are the two very dominant communities in Karnataka. Thank you for listening to me patiently. God bless you.
Okay, Nikhil Jain, you stand.
Fact check. Go ahead. More important points. I'll be on the more important points that are relevant to the debate. Dr. Sampati also said something very interesting, that for a man who barely went to college, I think he's forgetting that the Prime Minister does have a master's in entire political science from some university. And so far as the India-US relations are concerned, this is not the first time that the Indian Prime Minister has gotten, a good welcome in the US. Prime Minister Modi has gotten it before. Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh did get it before, and even the previous Prime Ministers did.
Okay.
India and US have been cultivating an important strategic relationship for years and years. I think the most important milestone in that relationship so far was the 2008 nuclear strategy group deal that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh inked. And I'm nowhere saying that Prime Minister Modi has not taken the relationship forward. He's certainly done that. I don't, other than the Trump fiasco that he did with the howdy Trump and ab ki baar Trump ki sarkar, I really don't find a lot of problem with what the Prime Minister Modi has done so far as the US relationship is concerned. However, a question was put to me that when you talk about Rahul Gandhi, he's just the leader of opposition in the parliament and not beyond that. First of all, there is nothing like that. The leader of opposition is beyond the parliament, in the parliament. Secondly, the difference between what Prime Minister Modi does abroad and what leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi does abroad is one person acts like a PR agent. I'm not saying it's particularly wrong. Prime Minister Modi does give paint a very good picture of India to the world. And the other person raises pressing concerns about India in front of Indian diaspora and other members of the global community. And I don't think it's wrong. It is the sign of a mature nation that is willing to recognize its problems, that has the freedom where the leader of opposition can voice his opinions at a public stage, and a nation that is willing to work forward. Now, had the government been very receptive, yes, you're the leader of opposition, you are a constitutional force, we respect you, we're going to listen to you, we're going to work on it, I think it would have been better rather than the BJP, just putting it in a manner ki Bhar ki dharti pe hamari insult kar di and this and that. I think the BJP could act more mature.
Okay, you think BJP should be mature, not Rahul Gandhi. But let me just first introduce two more guests we have on the panel tonight. Purnima Nath, she's a foreign affairs expert. She's joining us live from New York. And we also have Gyanendra Mishra, a political analyst, leans towards the Congress or towards the opposition. He's joining us live from Delhi. And Nikhil, you said that it is a sign of mature democracy, a mature nation, that a leader of opposition can go outside and say the things that he has said. But again, if Rahul Gandhi is a mature leader of a mature nation, as you say, he could have asked Ilhan Omar, what are you doing with all this anti-India propaganda in the capital? He did not. Why is it? I agree with you that Manmohan Singh earlier used to get good welcome. Prime Minister Vajpayee also used to get a grand welcome. No gainsaying that. it seems only Rahul Gandhi does not get that kind of welcome, because he seems always ending up with people who are down, depressed, gloomy about India's future, apprehensive about the manner India is progressing. There is a certain trait to those people, and Rahul Gandhi sort of becomes an echo of those sentiments when he's abroad, unfortunately. Let me get in Purnima Nath, again from New York. Purnima, before we go back again to discussing the difference between Prime Minister Modi's projection of India and the leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi's projection of India when abroad, please tell us, in broader terms, how did the US see Prime Minister Modi's presence in New York?
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that. Namaste. The first thing that you mentioned about Modi's presence, he came as a statesman. So his presence of 3-day production full of meetings, we know exactly what's happening. We know who's he's meeting with. We know the agenda that he is bringing forward. And on top of it, all this happening with a positive manner and with a massive pride of the country and where the country is going, the population of the country, the civilizational values of the country. When we were talking about the opposition, it breaks my heart that opposition party comes here with a begging bowl and asking for America's support and meets with anti-India agents, whether it's from the Congress side, and 10-day visit. We only know about 3, 4, 5 hours of event. We don't know what's happening rest of the time, who he has met, what his agenda is, and constantly he's actually bringing down people of the country and the progress that has made. And on top of it, he makes such weird statements like, India ki jo in this part of the time, at this point of time, Punjabi or Sikho ki kada aur pagdi ke liye hame fight karna hai. What is this? What kind of, who writes his speech? And does he come up with all this kind of agenda himself? So anybody gives him idea or advise him, then, tone it down, talk about the country. And you certainly are visiting as an opposition leader, but
Absolutely.
you are meeting with, everybody who's actually standing against India, whether it's Ilhan Omar or, the Democrat Party's agents.
I mean, fantastic point that you made, Purnima, about one wonders what Rahul Gandhi does for all the days that he spends on his trips abroad, because what we get in terms of his events is a couple of hours here and there. Now, look at the Prime Minister's schedule, which was shared in advance. I mean, minute to minute is accounted for. You can actually account for minutes and seconds of the 3 days that the Prime Minister has spent between Delaware and New York in the United States. He has just finished the address at the UN, and in a couple of hours, he's flying out, just a couple of hours. And he landed he reached hotel, and in an hour or so, he was at the Biden bilateral. Gyanendra Mishra, do we really know exactly what Rahul Gandhi does apart from making those absolutely negative, depressing comments about India in those couple of hours of events? Like all the time that he spent, about 4 or 5 days in the United States, we have just 3 or 4 events. What he does there all the time?
Abhishek, I take a very strong objection to this sentiment where an intent is attributed to the leader of opposition of this country. It is very unfortunate that here we are talking about that the leader of opposition has gone to a foreign land with an intent to conspire against the interest of India and to put down the image of the country. I have a very, very strong reservation about it.
Reservations, or are you doubting the facts, Gyanendra Mishra? I mean, he did talk down India, right?
On the fact, Abhishek.
You want me to run the sound bites in which he's running down India? He's gloomy about India. He's not sure about India's march to progress.
No, Abhishek, it is again very unfortunate when anything we talk about, when we talk about something good about the country, and we also talk about when something is not going well, and we take a very holistic stand in a democratic country. As a democratic leader, you have to be receptive to the different views. You just cannot go and sing the paean in the glory of your country, but you don't talk about the different perspective, different point of view, and certain very real perception of the happening in the country. And then if somewhere as a leader of opposition, obviously you go and talk about the achievement and the greatness of your country, but you do also talk about the views, which is a view which comes from the perspective which is not the perspective of the ruling party. You have to take a more wider perspective and discussion about the issues that the country is facing. And if you talk about the minority issues, you talk about the unemployment, you talk about the other relevant issues, then you attribute the intent that what you are talking is anti-national.
No, I'll tell you why. I tell you why that this intent has to be questioned. I have never seen in my life, both professional and personal, any Sikh having difficulty carrying a turban or wearing a kada, or carrying a kada and wearing a turban. And for Rahul Gandhi to insinuate that today we have to somehow make sure that this happens to Balwinder Singh, that he is respectably able to carry his turban and kada, is of course anti-national. You can't dispute or disagree with that, right? Let me get in Karan Verma on that. No, Karan, is it about we creating a narrative and perception, or Rahul Gandhi actually saying the things that he has said?
So I'm quoting Rahul Gandhi just so they don't get it wrong. The fight is if a Sikh would be allowed to wear a turban or a kada. I mean, he should be so ashamed of himself for making such a hideous statement. In India, where Punjab is the only state, Abhishek, which has an organized anti-blasphemous law, where in Punjab today GST has been removed from Langar, Veer Sahibzades in their honor, we are celebrating Veer Bal Divas. We brought in the Guru Granth Sahib Jis from Kabul when Taliban had taken over. They were flown in, and we look towards the Sikhs with great reverence. Their gurus are our gurus. I mean, this is the sentiment. Who can dare to make a Sikh stop from wearing a turban? So this is a man whose family, whose party presided over the genocide of Sikhs. So him coming up and saying this, I think it is not just anti-national, it's ridiculous. Any adjectives that we use for this will fall short to describe what a despicable act this is. Having said that, Abhishek, I want to talk about how the Prime Minister is such a sharp contrast to this man. Today, the Prime Minister, not just today, in the previous days also, he's talked about skill, speed, and skill. The three S's which have solved legacy issues, and he's set a template for the world. India has solved legacy issues. I mean, 250 million people pulled out of poverty line. We've created a digital infrastructure which has given rise to 111 unicorns. I mean, this is a digital infrastructure which has caught the imagination of the world. The data in our country is cheaper. UPI today accounts for 40% of our transactions. We are number one. The cynical Congress where P. Chidambaram used to mock, our sabziwalas are going to do UPI transactions. Well, guess what? We've surprised you, we've outwitted and outsmarted you. Even the person of the lowest common denominator has outsmarted these Chidambarams of the world, and they can't stomach that, Abhishek.
Karan, let's make it more contextual. Gyanendra Mishra, you wanted to come in, but let me just give you more facts, because you are saying that we are on some kind of narrative building, perception building, while the facts are to the contrary. No. Listen into what Rahul Gandhi said, for example, in Texas. In India, the phones, furniture, clothes are made in China. India, along with Europe, America, the West, we have given up on the idea of production. We have handed it to China. What we do, Americans do, West does, is organized consumption. Now, look at what Sundar Pichai has said today only. Gyanendra Mishra, and then you take over and respond. Sundar Pichai, after meeting the Prime Minister, said that he is transforming India. He has pushed us to design in India, make in India. including the Google Pixel phone. He's thinking about AI. He challenged us about applications that can help India's healthcare ecosystem, education, and agriculture sector. We are picking up Prime Minister's challenge. Now, you see the semantics of this? A very negative speaking Rahul Gandhi is steeped in gloom versus a Prime Minister who's challenging the topmost tech CEOs of the world, not just of India or United States, that please take this challenge and do something for India. I am going to help you. Gyanendra Mishra, how do you not see this as fact and not perception?
So, Abhishek, correct. So I know today people are talking about, that he said this about the Sikhs.
Not people, Sundar Pichai.
So first of
Google
all,
CEO Sundar Pichai.
First of all, let's Abhishek put things in the perspective and respond to some of the point that was made. See, it is the same ruling dispensations whose leader clearly said that those 6%, which is bordering on the Delhi and protesting against the Kisan laws, they were branded as the terrorist. They were branded as the murderer. They were branded as rapist.
But they were not killed like 1984. And you know who did what in 1984?
Today,
look at the irony, Gyanendra Mishra.
2023 and 24. Today you are shedding the crocodile tears for your love to what had Rahul Gandhi said or not said. But who would be held responsible for what has been said against the present of this country?
Well, nobody has been held responsible for 1984. Charges are still being filed, and we know the charges are being filed against whom?
Yeah, so that's the point. And I think there's a very wrong narrative. At least we should be honest about what he has said. He has never said
Sajjan Kumar in jail is not a narrative, Gyanendra Mishra, for God's sake. Jagdish Titler charges being framed against him next week is not a narrative, Gyanendra Mishra.
So Abhishek, here we are not talking about the 1984. I think we all know about the 1984.
Oh, because we are talking about the Sikh comment of Rahul Gandhi. That's why I had to bring in. I was not doing that. I was focusing on Sundar Pichai and Jensen Huang and the AI and quantum computing and semiconductor technology that the Prime Minister has been hawking about. You want to talk about that? We can talk about that.
We have to understand. You have to understand that this is the same honorable Prime Minister who on a foreign soil said that for 70 years no development has happened in the country. It is the same honorable Prime Minister who said on a foreign land that people were telling that they refuse being born in this country. क्या पाप हमने किया है जो हम इस देश में पैदा हुए? 70 साल से इस देश के लोग ये कह रहे थे कि हमने क्या पाप किया है जो हम एक ऐसे देश में पैदा हुए? हम इस देश में क्यों पैदा हुए? It is the same.
I think he was talking about the 2G, CWG. He was talking about the period of his scams,
but wasn't that painting a negative picture, Abhishek? Wasn't that painting a negative picture? He felt that there was a scam.
And there is a difference. There is a difference. Madhav Nalapat, there is a difference. Prime Minister talking to Diaspora is still talking to Indian sentiment, addressing the Indian sentiment. Rahul Gandhi is talking to Ilan Omar. Rahul Gandhi is talking to those people who have no stakes in India.
Come on, Abhishek. That's trying to, that's trying to find a justification to whatever the Prime Minister does.
We need to be honest in condemnation as well
Abhishek,
as the praise.
If you don't mind, if I can respond. My first point is, we have nearly 250
Mr. Mishra, I'm coming to you. Mr. Mishra, I'm coming to you. Let Professor Nalapat, let Professor Nalapat come in on this. Professor Nalapat.
Look, Gyanendra ji, I'm sure you know that we have about 250 million minorities, and they are some of our most outstanding citizens. They're doing wonderful work. And here, we have individuals talking about the way minorities are being targeted, minorities are being brutally dealt with, minorities are being eliminated. When in neighboring countries, yes, but in India we have 250 million, and China growing, for heaven's sake. Gyanendra ji, आप तो, you're definitely, all of us in this panel will be having access to the fact, for the last 5 or 6 years, the Chinese economy has been on a downslide.
Yeah.
It's on a very severe downslide because of Cold War 2.0. And that is going on as we speak. The economy is in deep trouble. Our economy, yes, it has its problems, it has imperfections, there's no question about it, but it's not on a downslide. The Chinese economy is on a downslide. So my point, and of course, I don't want to go into Sikhs. I do not believe the K people, the Khalistani, what is called Khalistan, I could call them the K people. They are not Sikhs. Sikhs are a noble community, a wonderful community, and they are a very intensely patriotic community. I would not glorify the word Khalistan, the pure word Khalistan, with such people, the K people. Frankly, Abhishek, I think it is important for the leader of the opposition, who is a constitutional figure, to follow the example of somebody who I saw on television once him hugging the Prime Minister in Parliament and saying words of love. Well, if he loves him so much, he should emulate him and give his hour-by-hour program, day-by-day program. We have a right as citizens of India to know the program of the Prime Minister and to know the program of the leader of the opposition. Whom he meets, whom he talks to, what he talks.
You mentioned about China. You mentioned about China not doing well. Rahul Gandhi actually praised China. He talked up. He talked China up. He said China does not have an employment problem, and China has become the manufacturing shop floor of the world, and we have missed the bus and whatnot. Now compare this, Nikhil. Okay, Nikhil, compare this. Compare this. Prime Minister mentions green transition of India, that we are actually achieving the Paris. We have achieved the Paris targets of climate change ahead of the year that was assigned to us. We are much ahead of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals target. For example, Prime Minister also, by the way, mentioned in the Diaspora speech that we are proud to be a diverse nation that speaks in multiple languages and prides itself in unity and diversity. He's not targeting communities. He's not talking about minorities. He's talking about everyone. He's talking like the Prime Minister of the country, unlike Rahul Gandhi, who did not speak like leader of opposition for the entire country, Nikhil.
First of all, Abhishek, when the Prime Minister says that we are a diverse country and we respect everybody's diversity, including the language, he's forgetting how his party, when in power in Karnataka, tried to thrust down the Hindi language on the people of Karnataka, and there was so widespread protest for that. He's forgetting the kind of protest that he's been facing around the country from non-Hindi speaking parts of the country about the diversity that his party is unable to understand vis-a-vis different languages and different cultures. His party is unable to understand that Brahmins and other parts of the country.
There has to be a fact check. If you're talking about the national education policy, it talks about 3-language formula. It is as old as Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's idea that every corner of India should have a mix of all the 3 languages, the local language, the mother tongue, the national language, Hindi, and of course English as the lingua franca.
Abhishek, the difference is that this BJP talks another line in a political rally, another line in the Parliament of India, and yet another line in the General Assembly of the UN. That is the problem. There is no consistency with what this government does.
But why should Prime Minister be talking at the UN as if he is addressing a rally in Kashmir? For God's sake, Nikhil.
Abhishek, can I complete? And so far as Rahul Gandhi's statement is concerned, a lot of furor has been created about it, that this was wrong, this was right. Now, the thing is that you yourself read the statement that a Sikh would not, the fight is about, would a Sikh be allowed to wear a turban in India? The reason Rahul Gandhi says this, that in India, we had an incident where hijab, which is considered an important cultural practice by a large section of Muslims, and I'm not going to call it essential religious practice of Islam, but an important cultural practice of a large section of Muslims, they were stopped from wearing a hijab. Tomorrow, it could be the Sikhs. And the reason that has to be said is when you had a bunch of farmers protesting on the borders of Delhi, many of whom happened to be Sikhs. It's not they weren't protesting because they were Sikhs. They were protesting and they happened to be Sikhs. This BJP called them Khalistanis.
I have run out of time, Nikhil. You know, when you are in the country, and you are delivering stump speeches, you can make legit political charges and counter charges against your opponents. That's absolutely crucial.
Rahul Gandhi was also speaking to the diaspora.
No, he was speaking to Ilhan Omar. He was speaking to people who are absolutely inimical to India's march to progress. I have unfortunately run out of time. Thank you so much, Professor Madhav Nalapat. Thank you so much, Dr. Sampath, Shivangi. Thank you so much, Karan Verma, Purnima, Nikhil, and of course, our other participant. But you see, Prime Minister, when he spoke at the United Nations just a while back, he talked about how India is a net solutions provider, how India is willing to share what it has done over the last decade by way of digital public goods, for example, and how they have improved the lives of millions, how whatever we have done has brought out as many as 200 million people out of poverty, and we can share it with the rest of the world. Prime Minister projected a picture of a confident India that's willing to share its responsibility and contribute to march of progress, not just of India itself, but rest of the world also. Listen in to Prime Minister at the UN Summit of Future. Again.